Run. Good morning and good Rosh Chodesh, everybody. This other.
Me. Yeah.
This probably can go out, Mrs. Yaffe. Okay, we shall start. So this part of the Maimer, what we come to is that when there's Kosis, when the Yidden were crushed in the time of Golus and there was a need for Mesiras Nefesh, that's when their essence came out. However, even after that, when there was a miracle and they were living in a time when things were good, the Gashmis and the Ruchnius, they were also crushed, and that's not because they were being oppressed and not because they were being challenged with observing mitzvahs, but just the mere fact that they were in Golus was enough of a reason, and for that alone they were crushed. And being that they were crushed, therefore their essence came out also even after the miracle took place. Then the Rebbe went on to explain that the fact that they were crushed after the miracle took place, when things are in a good place, is even greater than the crush that they felt during the decree. And I think that's pretty much where we left off. And basically the difference is that even though we're talking about the essence, so on the surface it would appear that, okay, we're at the essence, last stop, can't go any further. But it appears that even when you talk about the essence, there's deeper and deeper and deeper. So the essence that's revealed when you didn't feel crushed from Golus, even though everything is good, that's the deepest depth of the essence. And the reason for that, I think, is very simple. Not so simple, but very simple. The reason for that is because it's only the essence of the neshama that has this feeling that unless it's connected to the essence of Hashem, then everything is worthless. Not worthless, but then the neshama is broken and crushed to pieces. In other words, the fact that everything is good begashmis, there's no oppression. The fact that we can learn Torah, do mitzvahs, beruchnius. But the fact that just because the essence of Hashem is not revealed, therefore I'm broken to pieces, that can only come from the deepest depth of the neshama, where it's one with the essence of Hashem, and therefore if it doesn't have the essence of Hashem, then it feels crushed. And the Rebbe explains here that the difference is when a person's essence is revealed through Mesiras Nefesh, it doesn't really transform the person's personality. And as we see, that people who had Mesiras Nefesh, which means they were ready at a point where they were actually ready to actually give up their lives for Hashem, but later, when the Mesiras Nefesh conditions went away, they sort of went back to their regular self. That means that it didn't really transform them. And the reason for that is because it's as if it's something outside of them that's influencing them, that's uplifting them, that's inspiring them. But when a person is changed because the deepest depth of the essence makes the person feel that connection to Hashem. That's something which changes a person entirely. That's something which transforms a person. I know I said in the beginning that this is the hardest part of the mimer, so at least you know what to expect. And now comes another explanation, another 2 paragraphs, which are also not so simple, but let's try to go through it, at least to, on some level, to understand what it's saying. What is the difference between the 2 levels of the essence of the neshama? Actually, it's related to something which we're soon going to learn about on Purim. And probably being that there's so many people in the class here, we'll have to learn it again after when it comes to Purim, which will be next week or 2. But let me go with that for a moment. Briefly, everyone knows that even though Purim is a big yontif, and we celebrate Purim like any other yontif, and we're celebrating the miracles, but actually, if you read the story of Megillas Esther, we don't see any miracles. So why do we celebrate? Because even though there was no miracle, there was no splitting of the sea, there was nothing supernatural that happened according to Pshat. When you look in Medrash, there's a lot of supernatural things that happen. But in the Pshat story in the Megillah, there's nothing there that happened that was supernatural. What is there is a chain of events that led up to the story of Purim and the miracle that the Jewish people were saved. Vashti was killed, and Esther was chosen out of the whole country. She was chosen to be the queen. And then later she was instrumental in saving the Jewish people's life. So that's the miracle, the chain of events. So the question is, but that's happening all the time. Hashgacha Pratis, we see this on a daily basis. Everyone has stories in the life of Hashgacha Pratis. So what's the difference between Hashgacha Pratis and the miracle of Purim? What? Oh, that's my question.
A miracle is also Hashgacha Pratis.
Right, but a miracle, you see something supernatural. The doctor says there's no way that this person's life could be saved. The doctor says there's no way that this person could have children. And then they have a baby, and then their life is saved. So you see something which is not apiteva. You see Hashem openly. Hashgacha Pratis is also from Hashem, but because it's following the natural order, you don't see so openly that it's from Hashem. So Purim also, everything happened natural. Vashti was a terrible person. She rebelled against the king. She got killed. That's natural. The king's looking for somebody as a wife. That's natural. So it happens to be that they chose Esther. Okay, she was better than the other candidates. It's natural. She overheard a conversation. Mordechai overheard a conversation, want to poison the king. That's natural. Listen to the whole story. Everything is natural. And the fact that there was a chain of events, that's true, but that's same as with us. This person got a job because someone else left their job. And that person told the other person. The other person told the other person. And he came to him. And that's how I got the job. That's also Hashgacha Pratis. In other words, the difference between a nes and not a nes is that a nes you see openly godliness because it's not according to the laws of nature. So if that's the case, Purim was also not according to the law, was not outside of the laws of nature. Everything that happened was natural. Why do we call this a nes? We make a bracha. That we make a bracha. The bracha is, when we read the Megillah, we make a bracha. One of the brachas are Shasa Nisim Lavaseinu B'Yamim Ahem B'Zman Hazeh. Even Hanukkah there was a nes, because according to Rashi, the whole group that was fighting these soldiers were 12 people. 12 people fighting an army that's a trained army with tens of thousands of soldiers is a nes, not apitava. No military expert would say that these people could win those people. So that's a nes. Pesach is surely a nes. And when it comes to Purim, there was no nes. So why do we celebrate it as a nes? So the answer to this question, and that's going to lead up to understanding the Maimer, the answer to this question is, what is really the difference between nes and teva? Again, if you speak to a person who doesn't have knowledge so much of Torah, And definitely, even a Jew who believes in God, I'm guarantee you, if you ask him, what's the difference between natural phenomena and a miraculous phenomena? They will say, when it's natural, it's happening because of nature. When it's a miracle, it's happening because of God. But we know differently that even things that happen in the natural order, every detail is happening from Hashem, the same way like a miracle. Which means whether the bread is falling down from Shemayim or the bread is coming because I worked in a field and I have wheat and I went and took the wheat and processed to make it bread, it's the same thing. It's from Hashem, exactly the same way. So if that's the case, what is the difference? So the simple pshat is, the difference is just whether it's revealed or not. In the case of a miracle, it's revealed that Hashem is doing it. In the case of Teva, because these things happen on a daily basis, every day the sun goes up and sun goes down. It's a routine. Therefore, it appears to us as if it was a natural order, not through Hashem. That's the only difference. Is that true, though, or is there more of a difference?
There must be more.
Oh, you're right. If I'm asking the question, probably there must be another difference. So what's the other difference? And this is understood according to Chassidus. The other difference is it's not only a difference in what we see and how we perceive it, it's also a difference in the fact. And that is, everything comes from Hashem, but where is it coming from? So when you see something happen in natural order, that's coming from one of the 10 spheres of one of the 4 worlds, because that's the realm where things are set up in a structure. When Hashem created this world, he wanted the world to have a certain structure, a certain order. That structure and that order is what we know today as science. These are the laws of science. How water, all the laws of science that relate to water and to air and to earth and to fire, all the laws of science that relate to gravity, to the globe, to the sun, the moon, the stars, the constellations, all this is the order of nature that Hashem set up, and all the laws of nature. But all the laws of nature that Hashem set up here began by first setting up 10 spheres. He set up a structure up there, a spiritual structure in Atzilus. And that evolved into a spiritual structure in the world of Bria. And that evolved into a spiritual structure in the world of Yetzirah. And that evolved into a spiritual structure and the spiritual principles and laws in the world of the Gashmizik, which we know, the laws of science. So if we ask a question, why is it that fire goes up and water goes down? The answer is because fire comes from Gevura, and there's something about Gevura, the sphere that goes up. And water comes from Chesed, and Chesed is the sphere where Hashem put in the nature for things to go down. So when it manifests down here in this world, we see fire going, heat rising, and water going down. Fire takes things apart, and water brings things together. That's also connected to the way Hashem created and structured Chesed and Gevura. And all the laws of nature that make the difference between fire and water, they all exist in Chesed and Gevura. So therefore, when we see the sun goes up and the sun goes down, and the sun shines by day and the moon shines at night, and the constellations have this set up the way they're set up, all the constellations, which is this brilliance to every single detail in the constellations and the stars and the sun and the moon, all that exists in the heaven in a spiritual structure, and from the spiritual structure it evolves down to this structure down here. So therefore, everything that happens in the order of nature is, of course, it's coming from Hashem, but how is it happening? It's from the light of Hashem that's finite, and therefore it manifests in this world in a finite order, which is a limited, structured order that everything has its place and everything is set up the way it could be, the way it's supposed to be. When a miracle happens, which means a person like Abraham goes into a fire and the fire doesn't burn him, how could it be? Hashem made the order that fire burns. And because that's the rules and laws that exist with fire up there. The answer is because when Hashem saved Abraham Avinu's life, he had the light that's infinite shine, the light that's higher than the 10 spheres. The light of Hashem that's Or Ein Sof, that's infinite light and higher than the four worlds. And that light doesn't have any laws of nature. As a result of that, fire doesn't have to burn. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted the sea to split, but water can't stand straight like a wall. But once the infinite light shines, water can stand straight and not. Story in Gemara, which we mentioned more than once. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa told his daughter to light the Shabbos candles, and she said, but we don't have any oil in the house. So he said, so light it with vinegar. And she took vinegar and she lit it, and it burned just like oil. And he said, the same God that said that oil should light, he could also make vinegar light. But it doesn't work that way. Hashem created laws of nature. Vinegar doesn't light like fire, like oil. So the answer is, that's in the laws of nature. But when Hashem shines his light, which is l'mayla ma'atava, then the laws of nature fall to the side, and things can happen that they defy the laws of nature. And the same with all miracles. When a person goes to the Rebbe and something miraculous happens, that a baby is born, or that a war was won, or that a case in court was won against all odds, this is because there's a light of Hashem that's infinite, meaning it doesn't follow the laws of nature. That light was shining, and that light causes things to happen in a way which are inconsistent with the laws of nature. So we got it clear? Okay. So just to make it a little bit more clear before we go on to the next level is, I'll make this on the board a little bit lower so the people that are watching on the screen can also see it. So here's Or Ein Sof. This is Or Ein Sof, the infinite light of Hashem. These are the four worlds. And what we're saying is that if it's nature, if it's something natural, and it comes from here. If it's a miracle, then it comes from here. Right? Okay, so this is the answer why Hashgacha Pratis don't make a bracha. Thank you, Hashem, for performing a miracle. Like imagine a person has something natural that happens to him, and they get a job, or the life was saved. You know, they make this joke where the person came and said that he has to bench Goimel. They asked him why. So he said his wife was washing his shirt in the river, and she took a stick before she washed it, and she was beating it to get all the dirt out. That if I was in that shirt while she was doing that, I wouldn't be alive today. I have to make a bracha. Yeah. A lot of things happen throughout the day that our lives are saved. And I'm talking about real stories. Chas v'shalom, someone's in a car accident and they're okay. And in some cases, if it's a real serious car accident, you make a bracha. Baruch Hashem, they made a miracle. It's actually a bracha with Hashem's name. But what if the miracle was that you never went into the car? You don't make the bracha. But it's clear, Hashgacha Pratis. But nothing happened there that was supernatural. You were on the way, you were about to get into the car, you forgot something, you went back into the house, and when you came out, the car left, or the plane took off. There's no doubt that this is Hashem. But the reason why you don't make the bracha, because what you saw happen now was something in the natural order. But I saw Hashem. Well, the natural order is Hashem, it's just coming from here. And the nes comes from there. So now getting back to Purim. So what's the miracle with Purim? If everything happened in the natural order. The way Chassidus explains it is that there's a third category. There's a possibility for the light of Hashem, which is infinite, to be shining, even though normally if the infinite light shines, things shift in the natural order. The water stands straight, fire doesn't burn, the sun stops in the sky. Something in the natural order shifts because the infinite light is shining. There's another possibility that the infinite light of Hashem shines, and it shines in a way that it sort of infiltrates the order of nature, and nothing changes in the natural order. So what's happening is it's the infinite light of Hashem shining. It's being channeled through the natural order, and that's why I was saved. But even though it's normally when the infinite light shines, something has to shift in the natural order. It's like taking something huge and putting it into a small place, so it's going to break or bust. Something will go wrong. Something will be different. Let's put it that way. So when the infinite light shines, there's a shift in the order of nature. Here's a bigger miracle, that it's infinite light shining and it's totally contained in the natural order. So the truth is we don't know such things, but our sages were also prophets. Mordechai was a prophet and all the other sages were prophets. They saw that in the time of Purim, it wasn't an ordinary miracle. It was a miracle greater than all the other miracles. It was a miracle where Hashem shined his infinite light, and the infinite light was channeled and contained in the order of nature. And that's why nothing happened that was not consistent with the order of nature. But on the other hand, it was a miracle because we were saved not through the finite light of Hashem, but by Hashem shining his infinite light. And that's why it's this.
We can say that everything is like that. Like we don't know.
We don't know. So as long as we don't know, we assume it's coming from the order of nature. But there is an expression in Gemara. There's a pasuk that reads, "La'osei neflois gedolos levadei." Hashem performs miracles by himself. What does it mean by himself? Of course, by himself. No, the Gemara says it means Hashem performs miracles for people, and only he knows about the miracle. People don't even know. I remember reading, I guess this happens a lot, where a person went in, had a problem with his lungs. It was a minor thing, and they checked the lungs, and they said, we see on your lungs that you must have had, unfortunately, a tumor there once, and there's a trace left, but it's gone. Well, when did it happen? And the person had no idea. In other words, he had Rahman al-Islam, a tumor. It went away without his knowledge, and had the doctors not seen this scar or whatever it is that they saw that is a sign that it was there once, he would never have known that it was a miracle that happened without his knowledge. Now, the Rebbe once gave an example of a person who was a businessman, and he would travel to do business to a certain city, and he would travel often and he had his routes. He would pass this town, the other town, another town, stop off at certain places. And one of the places where he passed by, there was a peasant living there, and he began to realize that this guy's a good businessman, a big businessman. Apparently he makes money, then he goes back home. And one day the thought occurred to him that it's a very quiet place here. He's going to come by his village, he'll attack him, kill him, take away all his money. No one will have any idea that he has anything to do with it. The Alter Rebbe told the story and had everything planned. This businessman is traveling, has no idea there's a danger lurking ahead. And this person is waiting, ready for him to come by. And suddenly the lamp in the house falls over. Something catches fire. The house goes on fire, so he starts running to put out the fire. And while he's busy putting out the fire, this person drives by. Nothing happens to him. So really, his life was just saved in a miraculous way, but he has no idea. So that's what it means. So maybe, like you're saying, sometimes it could be a miracle, a real miracle, and I'm not aware of it. Hashem is saving my life. I'm not aware of it. In fact, there could be a lot of those things happening on a daily basis, and we don't know. But generally speaking, what we're saying now is that the two types of miracles. One is a miracle where when it shines, there's a shift in the order of nature, because infinite and finite don't go together. So when the infinite light shines in a finite place, there's a shift. Something happens that's not natural, that's not normal. There's another possibility where the infinite light shines in the order of nature, it's contained in the channels of nature, and nothing shifts, nothing changes, because this light is even more unlimited to the extent that it could shine in a finite place and be contained. Do you remember anything we ever spoke about in class here similar to this? There's a lot of examples in different ways.
It seems like infinite light of Hashem shining in finite things.
Right. That's the same idea. It's the light is going through a process of tzimtzum, but in a way that there's nothing recognizable that this is. So when there's a finite light to go through tzimtzum, okay, it became contracted, it became reduced in energy. But an infinite light, something has to happen. So the answer is that this is something which is infinite, but nevertheless, it's not limited to be in an infinite place. It can also be in a finite place. That's what's unique about it. So one of the examples to this is, do you remember when we spoke about the Beis HaMikdash, the Kodesh HaKadoshim? What happened there? There was a miracle, and yet when you looked at the place, nothing changed. So the Aron had a certain measurement, the room had a certain measurement, and therefore, when you measured from the Aron to the walls, it should have been less because the Aron occupies space, and yet it was as if it didn't occupy any space, which means nothing happened in this room that's supernatural, and yet there was a miracle taking place, and it was in a way that it was totally contained in the natural order. So what does it mean? It means there are two levels of infinity. One is something which is infinite, it has one limitation. Infinite means unlimited, it has one limitation. What is it? What kind of limitation does infinite have?
No limitation.
What?
No limitation.
Right. Yeah, if it's infinite, it means unlimited. But the one limitation that it has, it's not finite. And therefore, it can't be in a finite place. There's another level of infinity that it's what we call absolute infinity. And it's not limited to infinite, and it's not limited to finite. And therefore, it could be contained in a finite place and remain and retain its infinite status, so to speak. It's not exactly the same, but a similar thing. If you remember, we once spoke about it. It's related to the Maimer because it talks about lighting the menorah. That in the Chumash, when it says that Moshe Rabbeinu told Aaron about lighting the menorah, and then it says after that, and Aaron did what Moshe Rabbeinu told him to do. And Rashi says this is to teach us and let us know how praiseworthy Aaron was, that he didn't change anything from what Moshe Rabbeinu told him. So we once spoke about this. You remember there was a question, is that the praise for Aaron? Aaron HaKohen, who is equivalent to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he was such a great tzaddik, and we're praising him that Moshe tells him what to do in the name of Hashem, and he doesn't change it. What's the big deal about that? What else would you expect? Anyone remember the question or the answer? Okay, you're all shy. Fine, I'll say it. So the answer is what? So the answer is that generally speaking, when a person is extremely emotional about something, it's very hard, very difficult, almost impossible to be able to concentrate on the things that you're doing in an extremely precise way, because you're all emotional. And as we see, when people get emotional about things, they make mistakes, they forget things, you're very excited, and you run out of the house and you forget your keys and you lock yourself out and you can't get into the car and you took the wrong thing, and when a person's emotional, you're not settled and you can't concentrate. Definitely can't concentrate on precise little details. When Aaron HaKohen lit the menorah, he knew all the deep secrets of what's happening when he lights the menorah, what it's doing to all the spiritual worlds up there, what it's doing to all the neshamas of all the Yidden around the world down here. And because he understood this, he was extremely emotional about what he's doing. In fact, I told you stories about certain tzaddikim that because they were emotional, they weren't able to be concentrating and focused on what they needed to do. I gave an example, Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchever. Maybe you might remember that. Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchever was a very, very passionate person, a very emotional person who was serving Hashem. And he once heard the Alter Rebbe say something, words of Torah. And he said, that is amazing. Where did you hear this? So he said, I heard it from our Rebbe, the Maggid Mezrich. So he says, so where was I when he said it? He said, you got so excited and so emotional, you were jumping so high, they had to carry you out of the room, not to disturb. So he missed it, he didn't hear it. He heard the beginning of what the Maggid said, he got so emotional, they had to carry him out. I would expect that Aaron HaKohen got so emotional when he lit the menorah that the oil would spill and this would fall down and that would be done wrong and the order wouldn't be so precise and the little details wouldn't, because he's so emotional. We can't even imagine, but when a person is so emotional, it has to happen that it affects the way you do things. But Aaron was unique in the sense that even though he was so emotional, but it was all contained inside. So again, we're talking about two types of people. Like we're also like that. When you watch the way we daven, we're very calm, contained, cool. But that's not because we have this unique ability. That's because we don't feel much of emotion. But imagine a person who does feel the emotion. There's two possibilities. One is that as a result of that they're totally excited and they can't concentrate and focus on technical details, and that's why they're jumping up and down and clapping their hands and singing out loud. The emotion is just bursting from all sides. And then there's another level where a person is definitely on a very high level of emotion, but at the same time, it's all fully contained. That means it's a higher kind of emotion, and that's why it could be contained. So with Purim, did we get it straight? Well, okay, so now let's apply the same principle to our Maimer. The Maimer is saying that when the essence is revealed, it's revealed, it lifts the person, it inspires the person. He was ready to give up his life for Hashem, but it doesn't really transform him. In other words, it doesn't really become part and parcel of the conscious me. Why? Because the essence, in a sense, is infinite. The way I think and the way I feel and my personality, that's finite. That's the limited me. So this essence can't really become part of, and can't be contained in the finite part of me. So it affects me and it inspires me, in a sense, from the outside. The higher level from the essence is like the higher infinite, that it's so unlimited that it could be channeled to the previous, to the limited, finite structure and conscious part of the person and be totally contained and transform the person, that I become a different person as a result of that. So the principle is the same principle. This is with Hashem and this is with the neshama. Whether the infinite can be contained in the finite or cannot be contained in the finite. If it can be contained, then it has to affect the finite from the outside. If it could be contained, then it affects it and transforms it internally. So the two levels of essence, that's the difference. The lower level is infinite, but it's limited in the sense that it's not finite. So it can be contained in the pneumius of the person. The higher level is so infinite that it's unlimited, and therefore it could even be contained in the pneumius of the person and transform as a person internally. Whew. I'm not saying this is easy to understand, but this is the outline. This is the general idea. Now we can look at the words inside. Let's see if we'll be able to follow it. 75, 74, 75. יש לומר, זה שעצם הנשמה והציר דקייחס הם שני עניונים. The reason why we say that the soul's essence, but on the other hand, the character traits and the faculties of the soul, which is the conscious part of the soul, are like two separate things. The reason is because the essence of the soul is characterized by some kind of, it's still limited and still sort of has its restrictions. What is it? The fact that it transcends the characters of the faculties. In other words, the fact that it's sort of not limited and not defined by my personality. It's higher than that. It's infinite. But when we go to the higher level of the essence, but from the perspective of the soul's essence, as it's rooted in Hashem's essence, the simple, undefined abstractness of the soul and the characters, faculties are all one. And therefore, it could be channeled and contained in the conscious me. The Pchins Hamor, the Neshama Shemizgala, the Mesirus Nefesh. So the Rebbe says when a person has Mesirus Nefesh and the essence is revealed, this is the lower level of essence, the level of essence that's still in a way characterized and it's limited by being unlimited. That's its limitation. It's unlimited. And therefore it can't really become contained and become part of the conscious person, which is finite. I have my way of thinking, my way of feeling, my personality. That's something which is defined. But the other level, the higher level of the neshama, which is revealed when a person is ingolus and is crushed, that's the essence as it's one with Hashem's essence, and therefore it's totally unlimited, and that can become part of who I am. So in other words, when a person is in gullus, but a gullus, the kind of gullus that's still there's good and everything we need, but the person is broken and crushed because of the mere fact we're in gullus. That's something which comes from the essence, and the essence transforms the person, that this becomes his personality, that he can't tolerate another moment in gullus. You know, Rabbi Pate, should live and be well, he speaks sometimes to the children. So he once told the children, tell me, what do you think would happen if somebody would come and say that in 3 days from today, Mashiach is coming? This will be Eliyahu Navi himself comes. And everybody sees this is Eliyahu Navi, and he says, I have a message for you. Mashiach is coming in 3 days. What do you think is going to happen? And the children said, people will be dancing and singing and they'll be rejoicing. They said, and there's one person that wouldn't be so happy. Who's that? Nobody knows the answer. So he says to them, the Rebbe, why wait 3 days? 3 days, I mean, it's good news, but 3 days, who can wait 3 times 24 hours till Mashiach comes? So this idea that I can't live without the essence of Hashem being revealed, and I'm totally crushed if it's not that way, that can only come from very, very high level of the neshama. And like I said last time, even though we don't have that level of neshama revealed, but nevertheless, we're shouting at Masai verbally, and we're totally obsessed with Mashiach. We do everything to bring Mashiach as if we were feeling that way. But because deep down we have the feeling and we're acting that way, so that's how this essence is being revealed. But of course, for what it says in this mimer to be very actual, for that you have to be a tzaddik like the Rebbe. And that's what we see with the Rebbe. The Rebbe's drive for Mashiach was relentless, and it was like on a constant basis. The Rebbe himself spoke about it, that people must be looking at me and thinking, what is this? Every farbrengen, every talk, every opportunity, again and again and again and again and again. And he spoke about it, the Rebbe is speaking about himself, that people are thinking. He spoke about it last week and 2 weeks ago and a month ago and 2 months ago, and Mashiach still didn't come. Why does he continue? The Rebbe went on and on and on, because this is, when that part of the neshama is revealed, and what's part of the essence, there's nothing that could calm it down, nothing that could satisfy it, nothing that could make it feel at peace until the essence of Hashem is revealed in the world. And when you think about that, it's actually miraculous to think that this same person was always besimcha, always making everybody else besimcha. Like how did the two things come together? But we see clearly they could come together. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. Today is Adar. Okay, to be continued.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos. That was
Shabbos.
really wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I knew one person understood it. Okay.